Section 7.6, Security Summary. Actually, the best security summary you'll find is if you go to our support site and you look for the white paper called Best Security Practices, or Security Best Practices. If I go to the tech support page and do a quick search for Security Best Practices, you'll also find that it's in the System Manager's resources. If I go in here, you'll find a very nice white paper that describes in great detail some of our security recommendations. So that's really the best place to look at all this. But let's just kind of go through the list of things we would suggest. Of course, we suggest you have good physical security. Have a lock on the door. Have the Pi server not sitting out in the open somewhere. We were surprised to see how many people just kind of have this sitting where a lot of folks can get to it. Also, the file system itself can be locked down. So, for example, if I go into Windows Explorer in the Pi directory, there are all kinds of important security functions that you can set. So if I go into Security, Advanced, we suggest that you get rid of the execute permission that normally people would have. So we don't want people to get to the Pi directory on their own and start executing things. Next, we do suggest that your Windows Event Viewer be adjusted so that that you do log all of the successful or failed operations in our application. Now, normally you'll find that most of the things in Pi are stored in that Event Viewer. Now, if you haven't seen this before, if you go into, this is actually under Administrative Tools, and let me find that within here. That's under Control Panel. And within there, Administrative Tools, if we look at Event Viewer, this is normally where you would find application logs that include things from our software, so PiNet Manager, Pi SDK, etc. So this is where you would find specific SDK type answers or problems or application type problems. We do suggest that in the boot setting, you can't set up Windows such that it automatically logs in without the need for a password, and of course we suggest you don't do that. And along the same lines, we do suggest your screensaver have a password on it. So if you go into your screensaver, just set up some password or set it so that it requires a password. We don't want you to be walking away from the computer, somebody else coming in, just logging on and start doing your system management routine. Now, with regard to the Pi server itself, we suggest, first of all, Pi trusts, when you create them, do not give people access to the Pi server with the permissions of Pi admin. As I said, in the trust, you should specify the name of a user who has permissions only to write to the tags that are collected by that interface. It's not usually a good idea to give them Pi admin, although of course that will work, but that's more or less the sledgehammer approach. You're giving them permission to edit everything, including the data in that tag. Much better to create a specific user who only has permission to edit data for the tags collected by that interface. Now, we would define a medium security situation in which you've got, first of all, passwords for all users that have any kind of write privileges. We would want members of the Pi admin group to be the ones who would create points. So this is basically everybody who needs to create points. You would just dump them into the Pi admin group. Okay. And then create a lab group that has access to data but not to the point configuration. So for those lab technicians that need to make edits to data, give them membership in a lab group. Now, a higher security would be if you implement, first of all the attributes of medium security, but then also remove world access, so there will be no world read access. It means for all of the points and all the databases, just set world privilege equal to none. And then in addition, we would suggest you create point groups. This would be groups of users who can edit only specific points. So, different groups within your organization may look at different sets of points. Maybe there's a set of technicians who only need to look at the Emerson points and don't need to look at the Honeywell or Siemens points. So you could set up specific points so that people aren't stepping over each other in their editing of points. See, in the previous, we suggested you put everybody in the Pi admin group so that they could edit points, but refinement on that would be to create these point groups that are for specific sets of tags. Now, in addition to looking at the security best practices, we also suggest you download this Introduction to Pi Server System Management, which you'll find on our tech support page. So, for example, in Chapter 9, you will find a section specifically on managing Pi security that goes through a lot of the details that we've discussed in this class.